Welcome one, welcome all to Inside the Den. Today we have a jam-packed episode. We are joined, as always, by Chris Murray and first-timer Mike Stefansson.
In the den, baby.
Welcome.
Happy to join you guys.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. Since we had you on the team, you've been a dynamic hire, and we kind of liked your personality around here. Figured you'd mesh well with the podcast.
Well, that is so sweet, bud. I didn't expect that heap of praise to start things off, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah,
I truly appreciate it.
I'm feeling good because I bestied you in golf yesterday. So
little washoe round yesterday. You taught me a couple things.
Yes.
And you were a late sub for one of my best friends who ended up sick in the morning. So I tell you what, you saved the day, my man.
Hey,
appreciate you for that.
If this was baseball, I'd be a relief pitcher. You know?
We listened to a little Jimmy Buffett on the front nine, little Smash Mouth on the back nine. R.I.P. Jimmy. R.I.P. Steve. It was good vibes.
Good vibes.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, we're here. We're going to talk about this.
The vibes in SoCal. I don't know about those vibes.
Oof, bad vibes. What's your main takeaways from the game?
I think it was kind of predictable. I mean, my prediction was 54-14. Ended up being 66-14. I know both teams kind of subliberally in the fourth quarter. I mean, you take information from every data point you get throughout a college football season because there are really only 12 opportunities to see a team take a field and get to learn about how good it is. I would say this data point you probably take the least from because there's a pretty clear difference in talent between Nevada and USC, and you could see that on the field. So there were certainly some things Nevada did well. I thought the passing game was strong. I thought the quarterback play was solid. I thought their special teams in terms of the kick coverage was very good because I thought USC could have made some really big plays in kick return and punt return, so that didn't happen. But there's a lot of areas Nevada needs to get better at. They were unable to run the ball. I don't think the offensive line played all that great. I know Ken Wilson was pretty happy with the pass protection, although Nevada did give up 5 sacks. I thought the tackling was very poor. I thought some of the angles the secondary took was very poor, but you're also playing against elite competition. They're moving a little bit faster than you're used to, so maybe that leads to some of that poor tackling and the poorer angles. So, you can't read too much into this game. I think the Idaho game coming up this Saturday is a must-win. You cannot lose that game if you want to keep the Wolfpack fan base on the bandwagon. But generally speaking, for USC, you kind of thought Caleb Williams would go off, and he did that. You kind of thought Nevada would struggle, but they did have those 2 big passing plays, Jamal Bell and Spencer Curtis, both 70-plus yards. So there was some positives to take out of the contest.
And it was nice that those were spread out. They weren't just on one drive, right? You got one early in the game. You got one late in the game. Different quarterbacks, too, Brendan, AJ. And, yeah, you said it, Chris. I was thinking about your prediction that whole game as we were down there at the Coliseum, and I'm like, man, they're going to be pretty dang close. If not for a couple Brandon Talton misses, which were tough to see there at C level, maybe they get a 2 in that first digit. It would have looked a little better, like a 66-20, or maybe they could have got it to like a 52-20 or something like that. But it's clear there's levels to this when you're talking about USC and what the Trojans are capable of. And, man, Caleb Williams, when he first walked out for warm-ups, I had to double take. I'm like, wait, that's Caleb Williams? Because he looked enormous to me. And I'm like, wait, is this guy a defender or is that their quarterback? And I even asked somebody, and he's like, no, that's definitely 13 right there. And so he's phenomenal. And I feel like Nevada made him have to try a little bit, if you will. I mean, he had to do some Houdini stuff to keep plays alive, but he showed that he can do it pretty dang easily. And just it felt like his pre-snap knowledge. I mean, he knew what Nevada was trying to do each and every down, and he was able to find the best look for his team. So, man, that USC team is going to go on to do some pretty special things this year. With Nevada, no disrespect to last year's team, but I wonder what that would have looked like if that squad walked into the Coliseum last year. I feel like they're clearly improved, but as you said, Chris, it's going to be hard to get too much out of this one with this matchup, but I am excited to see Idaho this next week because I think that's a really strong FCS program that could come in and give Nevada a game. So I think anybody that comes to that game should be in for a good one and one that you're going to stick around into the fourth quarter for sure. For sure.
I mean, we laud all these compliments towards Caleb Williams, and rightfully so. Really impressive Fran Turkington, kind of impersonation out there. I figured you'd like that.
Go Vikings.
Yeah, exactly. But the guy he's incredible and a generational prospect. Yeah, I'd say, Chris has ranked this in the past, probably the best college football quarterback that they've ever faced, considering that they've faced some good ones in like Jameis Winston and like Kellen Moore, and you can name off all these other quarterbacks, but this guy is legitimately running an NFL like offense for USC. He was changing plays before they were happening. Most college offenses look to the sideline to change their plays.
Right.
He was fully in command, and rightfully so. Lincoln Riley has handed, the keys to the offense to him, and he knows what he's looking at. a play that really wasn't talked about. I mean, it's a big play. Was they're in spread, and it's he had a connection deep down the left sideline, and he waits till 1 second remaining on the play clock, snaps it. He knows exactly where he's going, chucks it in the bucket down the left sideline, gets it to his man. It's impressive. Again, we are talking Nevada, but they won't see that level of quarterback, maybe in the next few years. But that has kind of been the theme all weekend with just some standout players. Sanders from Colorado, and just seeing like Drake May at North Carolina. Some really good quarterback play. I thought Nevada did have some moments with Brendan Lewis, and A.J. Bianco showed what he could do potentially in the future.
Yeah, there was a couple moments that I, being at the game where I could tell Brendan was a little mad at himself for missing some throws and just maybe letting the moment get to him a little bit. I don't want to speculate there, but it just felt like he knew he was a couple inches away from making a play on certain drives, and then next thing you know, they're punting. And so obviously the verdict is still out. I think AJ came on and really provided a spark, considering his first ever pass attempt in silver and blue was that incredible touchdown pass to Jamal. I still am excited to see what Brendan can do as he leads them back out against Idaho. I would assume that's going to be the case. And he does bring that running dynamic that we didn't see a whole lot of because USC was able to kind of corral him. But we had just seen San Jose State drop 28 on USC. So interesting to see Nevada get half of that because there was some opportunities there that there's some good drives that just kind of stalled out.
Yeah, I think when you look at what San Jose State was able to do against USC, they ran for 198 yards. They ran for 8 yards per carry. Nevada 38 carries for 49 yards, so basically a yard per carry. Now sack total is part of that rushing number, but if you look at Nevada's top 3 running backs, Sean Dollars, Ashnaze, Crass Patton, they averaged right around 2.3 yards per carry. So a very poor USC run defense last year. They gave up 5 yards per carry, gave up 8 yards per carry against San Jose. I thought Nevada would be able to run the ball more, and I think that comes down to the offensive line continuing to struggle. I mean, this offensive line we talked about being the big question mark on Nevada's team. They were facing, yes, a very top 10 caliber team, but one that had not stopped the run really the last couple of years, and Nevada was not able to establish the run. So they were in a lot of third and longs. That means that you're going to be able to get a pass rush on Brendan Lewis. So I think considering the circumstances and Nevada not being able to run the ball, I thought the quarterbacks actually played pretty well, completed almost 70% of their passes, right around 9 yards per attempt. They have those 2 long touchdowns. I mean, that first one to Spencer Curtis, there was no separation there. That was a perfect throw, and there was not a lot of separation from the wide receivers the entire game. Obviously, that Jamal Bell pass from A.J. Bianco kind of being the one that stands out where he did have a yard and a half, and it was a perfect throw. I don't think the wide receivers got open all that well either. So considering that, considering the pass rush that they face pretty regularly, Brendan Lewis did have to use his legs. If that was maybe, Carson Strong his last year here, that's maybe an 8 or 9 sack game. I think you should be very optimistic about how the quarterbacks played. Now, that is based against the fact that, like we said, they couldn't run the ball. And unless this offense is able to run the ball, it's not going to be an above-average group. And I don't think the defensive line played all that great either. So the 2 trenches is really where you win championships, you win a lot of games. I think those were question marks entering the season. They remain question marks. But in terms of the skill position talent on this team, specifically at quarterback, that is a major upgrade from last year. And I think that will show throughout the season. I do think you start Brendan Lewis against Idaho and you continue to start him. But being able to get AJ into a game, I think was very smart of Ken Wilson, and certainly builds a lot of confidence in him in case something is going poorly with the offense or if there's an injury. They feel comfortable putting AJ Bianco in the game because I thought he played pretty well as well.
He did, and we talk about the run game. They rolled out some pistol looks unsuccessfully. Again, they're not getting that push up front, which is everything in the run game. And it's, again, against a USC team defense that is not necessarily known for being a strong front. They obviously returned some guys, but they lost out their main pass rusher last year was Tui Pelotu, since left to the league, day 2 pick. We saw San Jose State have success on the ground, and granted, that is, Steven Cordero making plays with his legs, but you'd like to see a little more out of this rushing offense.
Absolutely. I mean, Sean Dollars had a couple moments, obviously scored the early touchdown, and he was really hyped. That opening drive for Nevada to make it 7-7, I think that kind of woke up USC a little bit, like, okay, these guys want to play, and then, we know what happened following that. Would have loved to have seen Ashton Hayes get to bust out a little bit, but he really didn't get much separation at all, and like you said, Cross was the same kind of verdict there in the second half. So, yeah, a big task for the offensive line to kind of step it up, and that was a hell of a first game to kind of test, see where you're at as far as a litmus test goes. But there will be yards ran for this Wolfpack offense. I mean, that's obviously something that they are emphasizing, wanting to run the ball well. But yeah, you said it, Chris. Not a great first go at it. Just about a little over a yard a carry.
And I think Lewis will be able to use his legs a little more. I know Coach Wilson said after the game to you and Alex Margulies on Wolfpack All Access that he did start to run more in the second half. And I think Brendan Lewis wants to establish himself as a pocket passer, but he also is a very good athlete. So I think the more he can go and get yards, the better. We obviously saw the deep game, 2 long passes. That deep game only gets better if you can establish the run, because then you can do play action, then you're sucking down your safeties closer to the line of scrimmage. So that's why I think that run game is so important. Ashton Hayes has breakaway speed. If you give him a hole, he's going to take it to the house. They didn't give him any holes. I think with the one positive, they did have a 1st and goal inside the 10 after that deep pass to Spencer Curtis, and they were able to run the ball into the end zone. So they showed some physicality there. I think Sean Dollars ran really hard. That was a big question mark. Who's going to be your between the tackles running back? Because Sean and Ashton are a little bit more all-purpose backs. They like to be outside and maybe not confront physicality quite as much, but he was able to do that in that series. So we'll see against Idaho. This Idaho game, I think, should be high scoring. Idaho averaged 36 points per game last year. Top 10 team in the nation at the FCS. They made the playoffs last year in the first year under their head coach. 42 points in their season opener. So Nevada's going to probably have to put up 35-plus points to win this game against Idaho. And to do that, they're going to have to be balanced. So, like I said, we'll learn a lot more in Game 2 than we did in Game 1, because I think the talent margin is a lot closer against Idaho than it would be against USC. But you can draw some assessments out of the Wolfpack, and certainly there was some positive. Jamal Bell was fantastic. That is a guy who looked like he fit on the field.
Yeah.
Like, from an athleticism standpoint, there's a reason half of the Pac-12 schools gave him a scholarship offer, and he was recruited very heavily from the Pac-12. I mean, 8 catches, 121 yards, 1 touchdown. He was the one wide receiver that kind of stood out and was getting separation, was getting open targets for his quarterbacks. Delvon Campbell, who has that kind of ability, wasn't quite able to do it. John Jackson III came in and had 3 catches toward the end of the game. So there are some guys who should be able to get you some separation against Mountain West secondaries, but in this game specifically, there were not a lot of easy throws out there where you've got a couple of yards of openness like we saw with USC's wide receiver given to Caleb Williams.
Boy, yeah, I was sitting next to Doug Stewart on the plane and on the team bus, and with by the way, traveling with the team is something I've never experienced before. We can spend some time talking about that if you want, because the logistics of traveling a college football team is pretty unbelievable. So it was kind of cool to just observe that. But Doug, who former basketball assistant coach, now an assistant AD, he just said it came down to speed. He's like, speed. USC was just, those receivers, like you just said, they didn't have many defenders near them, as Caleb Williams was just throwing darts right to him, and then they could run with it. And you saw the yards after the catch too was a big thing for the Trojans. But yeah, I am anxious to see, obviously, the playing field much more even this week with Idaho coming in. Hoping for a great crowd, and hoping for some fireworks from Nevada to kind of show the fans that this is a much improved team, which I think we can all tell they are improved. And I even crossed paths with a couple USC coaches after the game as we were gathering up all our gear, and even they said, you guys have a great coaching staff over there, talking about the Wolfpack, of course, and they felt confident in just kind of what Nevada is building toward. There's a lot of familiarity between those two programs, but they're in much different places, and there's much different levels to this, and I think we all expected that coming into this matchup.
Definitely. Let's do a quick segment. Stock up, stock down. We had all these assumptions going into the game. Give me your either player, unit, or part of the coaching staff that had a stock up or stock down during this game.
Yeah, I mean, Jamal Bell was stock up for sure.
Yeah.
I think the quarterback play was stock up based on what we saw last year when Nevada had more interceptions and passing touchdowns. So I think those are the two that really stood out. In terms of stock down, I don't think the defensive line played quite as well as they could have. I mean, we talked a lot about the offensive line. That was about where I kind of expected it would be. I thought you'd get a little bit more out of the defensive line. Now it's really hard to sack Caleb Williams because he is so mobile and he has that experience and he knows how to move around the pocket. And then I would say the secondary was stock down as well. Mm-hmm. Now, we kind of talked about 3 safeties. Your top 3 tacklers no longer on the roster. Bentley Sanders, Tyson Williams graduating. Those are very established players. So you're putting some pretty inexperienced guys back there against arguably the best passing attack in the country. You're probably going to expect that they're going to give up a lot of yards. But I think defense in general, we had talked about maybe being a little bit more confident that Nevada defense would be better in its offense. That certainly didn't show in the first game. I mean, USC averaged 12.5 yards per play. That's an insane number. more than 200 rushing yards, more than 400 passing yards. It's a very difficult offense to stop. But again, comparing it to what we saw with San Jose State did have a little bit more success there. So San Jose State is kind of a mid-level Mountain West school. They got blown out by Oregon State in their week 1 game after losing to USC. So San Jose State played better against USC than Nevada did. Now, USC had a game under its belt, so maybe it played better in week 1. But just comparatively, Nevada's offense was not as good as San Jose State's against USC, and its defense wasn't as good. I think the defense struggling as much as it did just to tackle was a little bit surprising to me. But again, that speed will make you look a little bit silly in certain situations.
Yeah, I think I align with Chris on all those. I think Freem had a couple good efforts as far as punting goes. I got plenty of video of him punting, and they were able to down one inside the 1 yard line, which was cool to see. Delvon Campbell, you mentioned. I don't want to say stock down on him quite yet, but I was really hoping to see more than just one catch from him, the way he can create separation, and really just he looked like he belonged on the field too as far as his athleticism and just how big he is, but he didn't play like that. So I really am looking for 5 to go off a little bit in this next matchup. So yeah, I kind of align with you on all of those. The secondary, I mean, boy, what a tough task for them with Caleb out there just running the show. There was a moment after he threw his 5th touchdown when he ran by Isaiah Asisima, number 2, and I could see Isaiah's head turn as if he was like saying something to Caleb, and I'm like, what can you say to this man right now? And then Caleb, started counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just threw my 5th touchdown. Did you catch that? Because I don't know what. He must have said something because I could tell by the way their heads turned. But he didn't have a whole lot of room to talk there with the way that USC was playing. With that said, I think Nevada still leaves the game. Not super discouraged.
Well, they were healthy, which is a big thing.
Oh my gosh!
They got $1.6 million and they didn't get hurt. So I mean, that's kind of and you got a
that's kind of what they came for, right?
Playing, Nevada fell to 0-31 since 2000 when they've been a 20-point underdog or greater in terms of straight up. So it's kind of how everybody thought the game was going to go. Yeah, maybe if you make it competitive at halftime, you put some pressure on USC, you're going to feel really good about yourself, but that's a different caliber team, and I think that puts so much pressure on this week's game against Idaho. Nevada's lost 11 in a row. If you lose back-to-back seasons to FCS opponents, Nevada's dominated Idaho since 1990. I think they're like 11-2 against the Vandals. This used to be a pretty close matchup in the 80s. The Wolfpack pushed away. Obviously, Idaho had to drop down because they couldn't keep it at the FBS level. If Nevada loses to Idaho at home to open its home schedule in 2023, it's just going to be hard to sell this product moving forward. So, a ton of pressure on this team to go out there and deliver. I have not seen a betting line. I don't think one have been posted yet as we tape this. I do know that Idaho is 4 spots ahead of Nevada in the Sadrin ratings. ESPN's Football Power Index gives Nevada about a 70% chance of winning. So it's not just that slam dunk. You're going to go at home and beat the FCS opponent. So I just think there's so much on Nevada's shoulders to go out and snap this 11-game win streak because the next game is against Kansas. That's a very good Big 12 program. The game after that, they go to Texas State, which upset Baylor in its season opener. So this non-conference schedule, is looking a little bit stronger than maybe what we thought because Texas State seems to have taken a nice step forward in the first season under G.J. Kenny.
That's right. That's suddenly going to be an interesting game now after they beat Baylor. Yeah, and I don't want folks to be discouraged if this is a really good game with Idaho. I think that indicates that Idaho is strong, and so I'd like to see a dramatic game, frankly, and we are going to have the game on Nevada Sports Net, but I don't want people to expect the Wolfpack to come in and blow out the Vandals. That could happen, but they might get some more value in playing a really tight game against a team that's competitive, a team that's going to come in and try to spoil things for them, a team that is coming in 1-0 after scoring over 40 points in their opener. So it should be fun. And, I don't think they left USC too discouraged. Like you said, they got some money. They didn't get any major injuries. I saw Davion Blackwell come off with it looked like a hand, but I haven't heard any updates on him or not. But he's obviously a big part of what they're doing on defense. But yeah, other than that, I think they, coming away, the thing that bummed me out the most was seeing Talton leave a couple of those little 50-plus yarders really short. But as you said before we taped, there's a big difference between kicking at elevation and kicking at sea level, and I think we saw that come to fruition, although I'm sure he wants those 2 attempts back.
Yeah. Just left him short there.
Man.
We know he has that leg. Might be the case of the early season jitters. But back to the schedule, before the season, you just look at that schedule and you're like, okay, yeah, USC, we know, top program. Okay. And, you look at it and you think Texas State, Idaho, some winnable games there. But now all of a sudden, it's like all the more challenging. And we talked about Kenny in prior podcasts, and kind of impressive what they've done over there. He brought over like 50 transfers from his time at Incarnate Word to Texas State, and we're seeing that kind of like in mass replacements in college football and how it's working. I mean, just head north there, and you're in Colorado, where Deion Sanders just did it with Jackson State to Colorado, and they've had success. They beat TCU on Saturday. So yeah, I mean, Nevada also kind of had that to a degree with their 10 plus Pac-12 transfers, but it'll be challenging. These weeks will be challenging for them, and we'll see. If they head out of this 2-2, that's probably a win, because again, it's going to be a lot tougher than it looked prior to the season. But you have to play the games, so we will see this upcoming Saturday if they can top Idaho and snap that losing streak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think 2-2 in non-conference would be a good result. I think that's what everybody was kind of looking at heading into the season, because you do have 2 Power Fives. Now, one is at home against Kansas, so maybe that's a winnable game. But you look at Texas State in particular, they really did turn heads with their win over Baylor. They have a quarterback who's a transfer from Auburn. Before that, he was at LSU. He's 6'7", 245 pounds. This is a big guy. This is the exact same offense that Incarnate Word ran last year when they scored 55 points at Mackey Stadium and won that game and is an FCS opponent. I would say this Idaho team is probably a cut below what we saw with Incarnate Word last year, but not much. Number 7 in the FCS poll today. A couple of locals, the McCormick brothers, will be coming back. They're from Churchill County High School, so I'm sure there will be some additional motivation there. But this is probably an Idaho team which should make it to the first round of the FCS playoffs. It believes if they come in and they play a good game, they could win this game. So if you're Nevada, you should have. Nevada cannot be overlooking anybody based on how last year went. So it'll be very interesting to see how they play against Idaho, whether they can shake off what happened at USC, whether they can learn some lessons, and whether they match up front a little bit better physically, because I think that's the big question mark. Idaho's quarterback, he's a very good player as well. He was the FCS Rookie of the Year last year. They have 2 1,000-yard receivers from last year's team back, and they have more cohesion after a full season under Coach X reign. So this is his second season. So yeah, it's going to be a game where it's going to be pretty evenly matched, and Nevada's going to have to come out and play well to win the game. They can't come out and play poorly or average and expect to beat Idaho, which is what you would hope in your FCS opponent. You don't have to play a perfect game to win. They don't have to play perfect in this game, but they're going to have to play a really good football game to come out and be able to celebrate at the end of the day. So we'll see if they can do that. We'll see if they can play a clean game, and we'll see if dropping down a little bit level in terms of caliber of competition makes Nevada look better and shows off some of those talented transfers they've been able to add.
I think Coach Wilson is well aware of what Idaho's bringing into. He coached right up the street in Pullman for 5 years. That was when Idaho was back in the FBS in the Sun Belt Conference under Paul Petrino. But this is an Idaho program that has momentum. It moved back to the FCS. It had success back in the Big Sky. And it's a team that would love to come in and make a statement in Reno. And you mentioned the McCormick brothers, Sean and Tommy. It'll be really cool to see them. The former Green Wave coming into Mackey Stadium, a place that I'm sure they've always wanted to play, and they'll get a chance to do it with Idaho. If we can wrap a bow on the USC game, just so cool to see the silver and blue inside the Coliseum, to actually spend some time in that place. I had, coming into the matchup, we obviously learned, and a lot of us learned, that Nevada was the second ever opponent for USC inside the Coliseum. To think about what that looked like 100 years ago, and to see them now playing, and just the way the game has changed. And yeah, it was kind of just surreal being in that building and just knowing everything that's taken place in there. And then to see the Nevada Wolfpack take that field, run out. You see Jackson LeDuc running out with the Nevada state flag. It's pretty cool stuff, especially as a Nevada alum myself. And then you talk about some notable alums being out there. None bigger than Nate Burleson. So cool to see him with a Pack Dad shirt on with his other son, who's a senior in high school. He even said, I hope that he's going to be the next Wolfpack athlete. So suddenly next year we might have a couple Burlesons in the mix. But great to see Nate out there. Great to see Deion Henley. Joey Shaw was out there as well in the stands. And
Mark Fox,
I did not get to see him in person, but I did see the picture. It's great to see Coach Fox is still rolling with the Wolfpack. And, man, going back to the logistics of traveling a football team, it's just unbelievable. And I will say it was pretty cool to have a CHIPS escort on the L.A. highways, a little California Highway Patrol motorcade running through the team buses. I felt a little special, I'm not going to lie. And I was just a little media member just kind of getting to observe everything and experience it. But that's an all-time trip that you would hope outside of the game that all those players, staff members, and coaches all have a good memory from, because you don't really get to have those kind of opportunities that Coach Wilson called it. It was certainly a challenge, but also a great opportunity for the Wolfpack. And so for me, getting to be a traveling media member, my first time, especially traveling with the team and all that, I look back on it with some great memories on just what that experience was like. Had a really great breakfast burrito in downtown LA. Saw some other things in downtown LA that I could have done without, but such is life. But yeah, all in all, the Wolfpack going to USC is something that's not going to happen very often. So that was pretty cool to experience.
I think 27 they go back.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're going to go to UCLA, I know, too, coming up. So get to play in the Rose Bowl, get to go back to the Coliseum, cash out a little more.
Keep challenging themselves and get those paychecks.
We'll see if Lincoln Riley's still the coach. Happy 40th birthday to Coach Riley today, by the way.
Wow.
Young buck.
Young buck in the game.
But thanks for joining us, Mike. It was awesome to have you on and kind of talk Nevada football, and we'll have you on in future episodes.
My pleasure, buddy. Yeah, we'll do it again.
But thanks as always for joining us inside the den. We will be back later on to discuss Nevada football further. Catch us, obviously on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Feel free to leave us a review and all that, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time on Inside the Den.